In moving towards ways in which innovations can be developed and pedagogic challenges made, I turn from pre-airing utopian dreams to the notion of diaspora. Far from utopia, diaspora may be about being exiled, scattered, dispersed, forced to leave one's homeland, but goes beyond that, deep into one's psyche. Anita Devos has shown that women may face particular challenges in terms of diaspora and belonging, with its implications of multiple associations, each of which may define femaleness in hierarchical and restrictive ways. Anne Phoenix and Dr. Bra have shown that the concept of diaspora intersperses with theories of borders and feminist politics. They argue that the intersection of diaspora, borders and feminist politics can be understood through the concept of a diaspora space. Difference then becomes conceptualized as social relation, experience, subjectivity and identity. In considering diaspora and cultural identity, Stuart Hall describes the traumatic character of the colonial experience. It's a diasporan identity that too many learners currently bring to their learning experiences. They are subjected to the knowledge that they are other, and that they have been admitted under sufferance as long as they conform to dominant constructions of what it means to be a learner and what counts as knowledge. The construction of knowledge as ungendered, apolitical, and universally shared goal is highly problematic and raises particular issues about who has access to different kinds of learning and knowledge, and who is understood as a knower. Hegemonic knowledge is legitimised through constructions of objectivity, rationality, and neutrality, although knowledge is always tied to wider power relations, and its production operates in the interests of certain groups. It's not just that some forms of knowledge count and others do not. Rather, it's some forms of knowledge count because others do not. Learning can and does empower. However, what we learn about ourselves and our place in the world may also lead to exclusion. Lifelong learning as currently conceptualised may well result in maintaining and legitimising structural barriers of gender, class and race. However, whilst diaspora is about loss, it's also about new beginnings. It's about finding different ways of belonging, developing alternative ways of being. Globalization, and in particular the transnational movement of peoples, can create new communities that can challenge traditional understandings of class, privilege, identity, and transformation. The pedagogic challenge for innovations in lifelong learning is to develop new cultures of learning, finding ways not only to recognise the power relations embedded in constructions of knowledge and of learning, but also in finding ways for teachers and learners to resist and reclaim them. When I started my teaching career, as a portfolio worker, taking whatever part-time work I could find, I taught sociology on an access course in that same further education college where I began my educational journey. There I used to talk about the development of a sociological imagination. And what I'm arguing for here is for those of us who are teachers, as well as those of us who are learners, policy makers and researchers, to develop our pedagogical imaginations, recognising that knowledge is constructed, that teachers also learn and that learners also teach, and that, as Bell Hooks has shown, we sometimes need to learn and teach to transgress, rather than to learn and teach to conform. Diasporan spaces need to be found, which are about the creation of new opportunities, new ways of knowing, new ways of being, for all of us. Drawing on the work of Freire, Bell Hooks stated that one sentence of Freire's became a revolutionary mantra for her. We cannot enter the struggle as objects in order to later become subjects. An innovative pedagogy for lifelong learning, which locates us all, learners and teachers, as subjects, means that the current mantra about learning for active citizenship must change from learning how to become a citizen who embodies and enacts neoliberal values to learning about citizenship for social action and social justice. At its best, lifelong learning can be a route for personal development and economic growth. It can enable personal fulfilment, the development of an active and inclusive society, and political engagement. Clear links have been made between community learning and social and political change. However, as I showed earlier, lifelong learning can also be a mechanism for exclusion and social control, upholding and generating deep-rooted inequalities. Negotiations into and through education are complex and mediated not only by social class but by other factors, as well as by discourses, policies and practices. So, will we all live happily ever after? Some of us, of a particular age, social class, gender, educational background, will. Others of us will not. Within the current neoliberal ideology, lifelong learning is a subject of a broader agenda that is to do with vocationalism, entrepreneurship, competitiveness and economic well-being. I'm not arguing that that of itself is a bad thing. However, it can never be all that lifelong learning is or can be. The instrumentalism now apparent in lifelong learning does little to bring about social change or challenge inequalities of social exclusion, and it certainly doesn't lead to innovations in lifelong learning. However, as I've shown, resistances to power are possible. Lifelong learning can be a political act, with small resistances as well as larger ones that challenge constructions of power and create resistances to dominant ideologies and neoliberal paradigms, developing ways to differently explore lifelong learning in a globalized world. The challenge is knowing how. As Bell Hooks has shown, finding the courage to develop voices of resistance means developing the ability to talk back. True speaking is not solely an expression of creative power. It's an act of resistance, a political gesture that challenges politics of domination that would render us nameless and voiceless. As such, it's a courageous act. As Mary Stewart said on Thursday's book launch, at this conference we need to find ways of opening up those possibilities and joining together in the courageous act of all of us talking back. I look forward to continuing our conversations and discussions about those ways of talking back, both during this conference and indeed at the dinner this evening, and we have time now for some discussion too. Thank you.